Good afternoon, Shavua Tov, Chag Sameach, and welcome to the Israel Brief brought to you by Lay of the Land. I'm Raylene Marks, your host, and we are very happy to bring you news from Israel Monday to Thursday on this very channel. Just a reminder that because it's Pesach and tomorrow sees the end of Pesach, we will only return with briefs next week. So please enjoy the rest of the Chag, and to all our Christian followers and supporters, we wish you a very, very happy Easter. And as we always do, we want to know how you are doing, how you are feeling as we navigate lockdown together. And as always, we want to extend our gratitude and our appreciation to all the frontline workers, the truck drivers, the supermarket workers, the delivery people, the people sanitizing parks and transport situations, and very, very importantly, those doctors, those nurses, those medical care professionals who are on the front line working around the clock to keep us safe. A huge thank you to everybody who is doing everything they can to make sure that we get through this very, very challenging time together. Without further ado, let's take a look at today's headlines in Israel. And as has become customary over the last couple of months, we lead with the coronavirus crisis. And Israel's stats currently are at about 11,235 active cases. Now, active cases also include those cases where there have been results, be they recovery or otherwise. We know that at least 133 people are on ventilators, and sadly 111 people have passed away as a result of COVID-19, and over 1,600 people have made full recoveries. One of the big concerns is that at least 12 people have passed away from the same assisted care facility in Beersheba, and the government will be investigating the cause of this. Was it neglect or something else? Also, last night, Israel's former Sephardic chief rabbi passed away and was buried today with only a handful of mourners, in keeping with the social distancing laws. Now, the reason that we talk about that is that some of the controversy here in Israel has been the ultra-Orthodox community and the way that information about COVID has been communicated to them. And there's been a lot of conjecture whether or not they've had the right access, the right leadership. But at the moment, it is estimated that 1 in every 100 citizens that live in Bnei Brak of Tel Aviv are infected with COVID-19. That is traditionally a Haredi or ultra-Orthodox stronghold in the city, and that has been locked off, as well as parts of Jerusalem where there are high populations of ultra-Orthodox. The majority of infections in the country are in the Jerusalem area. It is also expected that Israel could extend or reinforce the lockdown until the end of Pesach, so that people don't go to other people's houses to celebrate the end of the Chag. But it has also been announced, in fact, Prime Minister Netanyahu, when he addressed the nation last week, spoke about the possibility of relaxing some of the restrictions after Pesach Chag, and it is hoped that from Sunday, the 19th of April, there will be certain industries that will be allowed to slowly return to work, of course, in keeping with social distancing, wearing masks, wearing gloves. These will be special needs schools and perhaps kindergartens, but the industry is likely to start very slowly, and only at small percentages of people returning will be high-tech, legal, finance, elements of transport and exporters. And it is hoped that by the 30th of May that the majority of Israelis will be able to return to work. At the moment, malls remain closed, restaurants, leisure, theatres will all still remain closed, and flights only to very, very important trade destinations may start opening up. And it is expected that a full schedule of flights could possibly only resume in September. But those are today's estimates, and we will see how the weeks progress if there is any change to that. In other news, there is no change in the fact that we are still waiting for a unity government, and the deadline for the Blue and White Party to form a government is today. And reports coming in earlier that they are anxious to get this sorted out by the end of deadline today. In fact, both Likud and the Blue and White parties have placed a moratorium on interviews with the media. They have a full press blockout and will not be sharing any of those negotiating terms. But over the weekend, it was reported that Benny Gantz appealed to President Rivlin to please extend the time that he would have to negotiate, and he was denied by President Rivlin. This prompted the Likud to ask the president to charge Prime Minister Netanyahu with the task of forming a government, and as soon as this was announced, a petition was signed by opposition at the Israeli Supreme Court to try and block the Prime Minister from forming a government, citing his impending indictments for fraud and various other charges. So we sit on tenterhooks again to see if we will have some final arrangement or unity government by the end of today. President Rivlin, who is extremely frustrated, threatened that there will be a possibility of a fourth election, and nobody knows this. I don't think that the Israeli public will tolerate a fourth election. And in other news, and this is very unusual, the New York Times and other mainstream media reported that a former worker, or somebody who claims to work for human rights organization Amnesty International, alerted Hamas to the fact that there were peace activists in the Gaza Strip conducting Zoom meetings with Israelis. Now, what has been quite fascinating over the last couple of months is how Palestinians and Israelis have been working together, but just around the world, people have kind of put down their arms for the moment to interact with each other. And Hind Kadari, who sometimes works for RT International and various other news services, alerted Hamas, who roundly arrested these peace activists. Now, it's of grave concern because they would summarily charge them with treason, which could look at them losing their lives. And this is a story we're going to follow very, very closely. Incidentally, we haven't heard much from other human rights organizations who we would expect to condemn this kind of action. But this is where we need you to come into it. We need you to share the story of the Gazan peace activists trying to talk to Israelis who are being arrested for treason. Now, while you're doing that, you can multitask and check out our content online. Visit our website at www.layoftheland.online. You can read Dave's article on how entertainment is continuing to thrive during the lockdown. It's also on our Facebook page at Lottel Site, and if you haven't already liked or followed us, please do so and share our content with your friends. And don't forget that we have a YouTube channel at the Israel Brief, and every subscription helps to make sure that Israel's side of the story gets out. So with today's edition of the Israel Brief, I'm Rolene Marks wishing you Chag Sameach, Happy Easter, and we'll chat again next week.